There exists within every man a force so powerful, so primal, that it has the capacity to either elevate him to godlike heights or drag him into ruin. That force is sexual energy, not in the crude, lustful sense society trivializes, but in the ancient, transformative way understood by sages, warriors, and thinkers throughout history. Napoleon Hill called it sexual transmutation, the redirection of libido into ambition, genius, and drive. David Dida spoke of it as the masculine gift, a fire that must be harnessed and channeled, not spilled and wasted. Taoist masters believed this energy to be the literal essence of life, the jing that fuels physical vitality, creativity, and spiritual insight. At its core, sexual energy is the engine of life, the raw electricity that animates desire, builds kingdoms, and births every act of greatness. But not all men understand this. Most confuse the call of their instincts with the craving for release. Lust is merely the surface-level manifestation of this deeper power. It's like mistaking the flicker of a flame for the sun itself. The wise man distinguishes between compulsive indulgence and sacred energy. Raw lust is reactive. It seeks gratification without direction. It consumes without building. But when that same energy is refined and spiritualized, it becomes focused. It transforms from mere appetite into a relentless drive for purpose. Libido, in its elevated form, becomes the creative furnace of empires, of innovation, of legacy. The great mistake of modern masculinity is believing that the highest use of sexual energy is pleasure. But the highest use of that energy is power, creative, constructive, sovereign power. History confirms this. The greatest men were not necessarily the most indulgent, but the most disciplined. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the most prolific minds to ever live, is said to have practiced celibacy, preserving his energy for the divine expressions of art and science. Nikola Tesla famously avoided sexual relationships altogether, believing that intimacy with a woman would derail his mission to illuminate the world. Mahatma Gandhi practiced brahmacharya, a form of spiritual abstinence, to fuel his political resistance. Muhammad Ali abstained from sex before fights because he knew it dulled his edge. He understood that carnal indulgence made him slower, weaker, less focused. These men were not repressed, they were refined. They understood that the retention of this force amplified their vision. They weren't running from pleasure, they were choosing purpose. This is the hidden truth of greatness. Desire, when not fulfilled instantly, becomes drive. Sexual frustration is not your enemy, it is your fuel, if you can contain it. Every man feels the primal fire of wanting, to dominate, to seduce, to conquer. But the difference between a man who becomes a king and a man who remains a slave is what he does with that fire. The same energy that pushes you toward orgasm can be redirected to push you toward empire. Jung referred to libido not just as sexual energy, but as the total psychic force that animates the mind. All of our ambition, aggression, love, creation, and will to power stems from the libido. You are not simply horny, you are charged with the very current of creation. Most just don't know what to do with it. In modern society, this energy is wasted by design. Pornography, social media, thirst traps, hookup culture, these are engineered to drain the masculine force before it ever becomes a threat. They want you weak, pacified, docile. You are given pleasure without conquest. You trade your essence for pixels. You leak your power with every orgasm not earned through love, not anchored in legacy. The average man releases his vitality daily, sometimes multiple times a day, for nothing, no child, no creation, no kingdom. He relieves the tension instead of rising through it. He numbs the hunger instead of harnessing it. This is why so few men build anything today. Their seed is spilled, their spirit distracted, their minds fogged. But the ancients knew better. Warriors before battle would abstain. Kings before coronation would fast from flesh. Monks would meditate through the temptations of lust. not because they feared it, but because they respected it. They knew the power it held and what it could become if forged. To master sexual energy is not to reject women or sex. It is to place them in their rightful order. A man must first conquer himself before he seeks to conquer the world. Sexual discipline is the first battleground of kingship. And so we arrive at the truth that separates the hollow from the historic. The men who built the world were not ruled by their desires. They ruled through them. Let this be your initiation. The primal is not to be suppressed, but transmuted. Your lust is the raw material. Your empire is the masterpiece. Power has many faces: the sword, the pen, the coin. But one of its most dangerous and seductive forms is found not in open warfare, but in the bedroom. History, when read with the right eyes, is not just a chronicle of battles and treaties. It is a record of seduction, of rulers toppled by desire, and of kingdoms maneuvered through erotic influence. Sexual energy, when not simply repressed or transmuted, has often been weaponized, and more than once, it has rewritten the fate of empires. In my audiobook, Becoming Indecepta, we dive deep into the subject of sublimation and how the Indecepta man is undeceivable but not invincible. Take Cleopatra, not merely a queen, but a master of erotic strategy. She seduced Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, not just with her beauty, but with intellect, mystique, and power. After Caesar's death, she repeated the feat with Mark Antony, commanding influence over 2 Roman giants. Cleopatra used her sexuality not for cheap thrills, but as leverage, a political tool to guard Egypt's sovereignty and amplify her influence on the world stage. She embodied what many fear, a woman who understood the power of Eros and used it like a sword. Helen of Troy is another mythologized archetype, the face that launched 1,000 ships. Behind that phrase is a truth. Erotic desire has toppled civilizations. From the harems of Ottoman sultans to the secret lovers of French kings, court concubines and royal mistresses often held more sway than ministers. Spies disguised as lovers infiltrated enemy camps, seduced generals, and passed secrets that shifted the course of wars. In this realm, we see the eternal battle between the seducer and the seduced. As Robert Greene explains in The Art of Seduction, power often flows not through brute strength, but through emotional manipulation, through seduction. The most potent seducers don't chase, they pull. They radiate energy that others want to orbit. Erotic power becomes social power. Lovers are elevated into rulers. Courtesans become confidants of kings. And in this dance, both men and women have learned to weaponize what makes them desirable. Women use beauty, softness, and allure as bait. Men use mystery, dominance, and emotional distance as their armor. The battlefield shifts from physical warfare to psychological warfare, and the cost of misjudging your opponent can be the loss of everything you've built. History is also filled with cautionary tales of men who ascended through strength, only to fall through lust. Samson was a judge of Israel, gifted with supernatural strength, until he laid his head in Delilah's lap and revealed his secret. She used his vulnerability against him. His mission ended not on the battlefield, but in the arms of a woman. Fast forward to modern times, Bill Clinton, once one of the most powerful leaders in the world, nearly lost it all to a scandal rooted in indulgence. Tiger Woods, at the height of athletic greatness, shattered his image and momentum through sex addiction. King Solomon, the wisest of all biblical kings, let foreign wives pull him away from his divine path. These men were not weak in mind or ability. They were undisciplined in desire. And when a man cannot govern his lust, he cannot govern a nation. He cannot govern his legacy. Because empire collapses from within first. The moment a leader begins to serve pleasure over purpose, the throne begins to rot. It doesn't matter how sharp his intellect, how great his resources. Once his appetite dictates his actions, He becomes a slave in a crown. The seducer becomes the seduced. The king becomes the clown. The general becomes the gossip. And what was once a legacy begins to rot in the soil of indulgence. So what is the path forward for men who desire power, not ruin? It begins with redefining masculinity, not as repression of desire, but control over it. To lead others, a man must first lead himself. True kings are not at war with their urges. They are in command of them. This is not celibacy for weakness' sake. It is restraint for mastery's sake. A man must master the woman within, the anima, as Jung described. That inner feminine force that seeks validation, beauty, connection, or he will forever chase it outside himself. And every time he gives himself away in pursuit of feminine approval, he leaks power. Leadership is not just vision. It is sovereignty over the flesh. It is ruling over your own kingdom, body, mind, and spirit. The disciplined man can have pleasure, but he is never ruled by it. He can experience love, but never lose his mission to it. His sexual energy doesn't distract him. It sharpens him. It makes him magnetic, not desperate, focused, not frenzied. And this is the eternal truth. Empires are not only built by the sword, they are built by the seed. Whether that seed creates legacy or ruin depends on the man. Thus remember, we are Indecepta. Becoming Indecepta is the code they never wanted you to learn. A psychological war map for men, forbidden teachings fused with modern strategy for influence, dominance, and self-mastery. If you want peace, prepare for war.